Boycott, divestment and sanctions. Well, boycott, as Mandela said, it's a tactic, it's not a principle. It's not always applicable. It's not, as far as possible, directed against individuals, it's directed against institutions. Now, BDS is an instrument to be used by civil society, and the only reason civil society has to use it is because governments refuse to take their responsibilities. Now, in the case of the European Union, the association agreement with Israel that gives it extraordinary trading privileges has an Article 2 that calls for it to be suspended in the case of violations of human rights on either side. Now, clearly, Israel is in violation of that, but the European Union refuses to sanction Israel by suspending the agreement. So therefore, civil society is obliged to impose its own sanctions, so to speak, in the shape of boycott, and to say to governments, look, you don't like this, you don't like our boycotting Israel, there's one way to stop us, and that is by taking the action that you yourselves have the power to take to make Israel conform to international law. People can isolate Israel the way that South Africa was isolated during the boycott, during the apartheid years. They can isolate it by using boycott and by using divestment, but just ordinary people can boycott it. Divestment is more for corporations and the like, and sanctions ultimately have to be carried out by government. So ordinary people, well, for one thing, don't go to Israel, don't take your holidays in Israel, don't buy Israeli goods, support campaigns of cultural boycott as well, of academic boycott, which again are not directed against individuals, they're directed against institutions. At present it seems that this campaign of isolating Israel is just about the only thing that civil society can do. It's a big uphill struggle because the amount of state support for Israel coming from the United States and the European Union simultaneously is immensely powerful, so it's a really quixotic struggle, but it has to be done. And it worked in the case of South Africa. People said it couldn't be done in the case of South Africa, but it was ordinary people first who isolated South Africa. And Israel, in a way, is even more frightened of being isolated because Israel likes to present itself as a kind of light in the wilderness, as a kind of exemplary democracy in the middle of Arab barbarism. And if ordinary people say, well, no, we don't see you in that light, and we're not going to go to Israel, we're not going to participate in your events, we're not going to engage in sporting engagements with you, cultural engagements, then Israel doesn't like it.